long way away, and Bangalore has become, over years, a city of distances. But since I commuted early in the morning, I was able to capture some pictures of the market. So at some point of time, I'll show you those, maybe after, I'll give it to one of your faculty, so we'll show you some pictures of how our under the flyover market operates. You probably will see the more branded areas when you move around just outside Electronic City. But the real India is under the flyovers, and you can see them in those pictures, even if you are not able to go there. So, let me first tell you how thrilled and then also how nervous I am to be here with all of you this morning, because an IT audience is the most difficult of audiences. And why is that? Because you belong to a world of clear-cut problems, linear logic, and need solutions. And I belong to the world of wicked problems, clumsy methods, and messy solutions. The making of public policy for a country like India, which is so large, so populous, and so diverse, is intrinsically a more complex task than a smaller and more homogeneous political unit. So I thought quite a bit about how to present this topic to you, complex as it is, because for every hypothesis that we construct on India, the opposite will also be true. Finally, I decided to speak from the vantage point of my own identity as an officer of the Indian Administrative Service, and I'll talk to you about the service a little later on, with about 35 years work experience in the real world, because it does not get more real than the IAS. So I will be giving you a personalized worm's eye view from my own experience, rather than a researcher's macro level bird's eye view. To set the agenda for today, I'll start a little with myself, just tell you where I come from, and then move on to the changing nature of public policy making in India. And India is not just diverse, it's also undergone a lot of changes since its birth in 1947. So it's a fast-paced change. We have an old history as a culture with a unified cultural consciousness, but we have a very young history as a nation. So, in that very youthful state, in these early years of our youth, I will say, we have undergone so many changes, and that is what we'll be speaking about. Broadly, we looked inward in the 1980s, and I'll speak about that, then the 1990s, and today's scenario, what we see in India today, where you are now. I'll then move on to the IAS itself and speak about what the IAS is, the Indian Administrative Service, and both the joys and the frustrations of being in the service, the challenges in policy making and implementation of policy in this scenario. Finally, I'll speak about what keeps us going and maybe a few takeaways. An old administrator like me cannot avoid giving advice. So whether you take it or not, there will be a few pieces of wisdom or non-wisdom which will be coming from me. So this is how I began my career. I joined, as the faculty kindly introduced, I joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1987. And for a very long time I spent life as a conventional bureaucrat, surrounded by files. So the most important questions in my life were whether I should open this file. File is the way we do our work. I suppose it's the same in German bureaucracy as well. So we put all our notings on files. Earlier they were on paper, today they are electronic. But basically, when I joined service, we were still working on paper. So whether I should open this file, whether I should close this file, the most difficult question which I've still found no one is able to crack, should I actually sign this file and approve the proposal. So for a very long time I spent this, and this is where the Worm's eye view comes from, largely. But at some point of time, I took a pause. And that was midway through my career. The poverty, the inequality around me, the unfairness of the system, both within and without the government, all of them made me think. And at that time, I decided that, okay, serendipity also played a role. As I was reflecting, there also came an opportunity to do a master's in public policy and management from one of the premier institutes, business schools of India, which is the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. This was a government-sponsored program, and I spent 2 years as a master's student in IIM Bangalore, and I graduated with a master's in public policy and management. I thereafter returned to service, but when IIM Bangalore decided to float a public policy doctoral program in public policy, they wrote to me asking me to apply because they knew me as a good doctoral material. One of you was a doctoral scholar. And that's how I got into the doctoral program, and I spent 5 years there, took a sabbatical from work, and I graduated with a doctorate in public policy. And thereafter, since then until today, I have kind of juggled a concurrent career. My bread and butter career was in the IAS, so that was still my primary career. But I also moonlighted as a academic, a researcher, largely a speaker, because I found it much easier to get through to audiences through maybe a 10, 15, 20-minute speech rather than a long article in a journal, which nobody reads anyway. I do my share of that, but so don't lose heart. But I get through to the young in particular through speeches. So I delivered about 500 talks on various issues of public policy all across the country and overseas. So I have been a little bit of everything as she mentioned in the introduction. So that is shortly where I come from. Try to encapsulate about 35 years in the service and in this dual career in about 5 minutes. Let's go to the next slide.